As October drew to a close, the Ukraine-Russia conflict took a new turn with reports of North Korean troops landing in Russia's Kursk region. According to Ukrainian intelligence, an estimated 12,000 North Korean soldiers are now present in the area. This marks an unexpected escalation in the war, as foreign soldiers, directly tied to North Korea, have entered the battlefield on Russian soil. This move raises pressing questions about what has led to this decision, why Russian President Vladimir Putin turned to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for help, and what the implications might be for the future of this long-running war. Since August, Ukrainian forces have achieved significant advances, breaking through Russian defensive lines and pushing deep into Russian territory. Although Russian reports initially dismissed these moves, claiming they had effectively contained Ukrainian advances, evidence shows Ukrainian troops remain entrenched within Russia's borders, creating a foothold that Russia has struggled to dislodge. To better understand why Russian leaders would turn to an external power, particularly North Korea, to help fight this conflict, let's delve into the strategies, historical context, and military dynamics at play. Strategic context: a surprising offensive operation on Russian soil. In early August, the Ukrainian military launched a carefully planned and concealed offensive operation in the Kursk region. Ukrainian forces orchestrated the attack with meticulous precision, hiding equipment in dense forests and disguising troop movements as routine military exercises. The operation's timing and planning enabled Ukrainian forces to advance nearly 15 kilometers into Russian territory, capturing 11 settlements and putting pressure on the Russian defense infrastructure. Ukrainian troops targeted key border checkpoints in the Sudzha and Siniva districts, swiftly overwhelming poorly trained conscripted soldiers who were responsible for defense. Troops from Ukraine's 80th Assault Brigade, supported by a tank battalion, breached Russian defenses and seized the Sudzha checkpoint, taking dozens of Russian soldiers prisoner in the process. Russia's attempt to counter these actions, even with experienced units like the Ahmet Battalion, was ineffective. Ukrainian forces secured key areas, establishing a solid front and showcasing the vulnerability of Russian border defenses. A change in tactics, lessons learned from previous offensives. The success of the Kursk operation reflects lessons learned from previous campaigns in regions such as Kherson and Bakhmut, where Ukrainian forces initially faced challenges due to heavily mined roads and entrenched Russian defenses. In contrast, during the Kursk offensive, Ukrainian troops implemented a series of calculated tactical changes. They advanced using mine-clearing vehicles, electronic warfare systems, and substantial air defenses, allowing them to avoid Russian traps and defend against counterattacks. This strategy allowed Ukrainian forces to achieve a foothold in Russian territory without suffering the high casualties seen in earlier offensives. Within days, Ukrainian forces reached the first of several Russian defensive lines constructed over 2.5 years at an estimated cost of $155 million. These defenses included concrete barricades, extensive trench networks, and other fortifications intended to repel a sustained offensive. However, the Ukrainian advance exposed gaps in these defenses, as Ukrainian artillery and missile systems, including the HIMARS, high-mobility artillery rocket system, managed to break through Russian lines, causing substantial damage and inflicting heavy losses on Russian convoys and supply lines. Intensified conflict and Russian losses. One of the most noteworthy outcomes of the Kursk offensive was the heavy toll on Russian equipment and personnel. On August 7th, a Ukrainian drone attack reportedly downed a Russian helicopter, marking the first time in the conflict that an FPV drone was successfully used in such a capacity. This and subsequent attacks on Russian supply convoys underscored the effectiveness of Ukraine's new tactics and equipment. By August 11th, Ukrainian forces began shifting their focus from rapid advances to consolidating the territory they had gained, fortifying their positions, and preparing for a prolonged occupation of the newly captured areas. Throughout August, Ukrainian forces maintained control over a 1,263 square kilometer area, comprising 93 settlements. This achievement posed a direct threat to Russian control over Kursk and forced Russia to mobilize reinforcements and launch a series of counteroffensive maneuvers. Over 594 Russian soldiers were captured in the process, adding to the mounting challenges facing the Kremlin. Russia's response: reinforcements and a new alliance with North Korea. The Ukrainian offensive in Kursk placed significant pressure on Russia's military capabilities. Russian commanders responded by redeploying thousands of soldiers to the region, drawing troops from other conflict zones such as the Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia fronts. Among these reinforcements were elite units, including the 810th and 155th Marine Brigades and the 106th Airborne Division. Despite the addition of these specialized forces, Russian efforts to regain control of Kursk remained limited, with Ukrainian forces retaining a stronghold in the region. By mid-October, President Putin reportedly ordered his forces to push Ukrainian troops out of the Kursk region by the end of the month. However, after limited success, Russia sought support from an unusual ally, North Korea. With dwindling manpower, Russia turned to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who agreed to send a contingent of around 12,000 North Korean soldiers. These troops arrived equipped with Russian-supplied weaponry, including machine guns, sniper rifles, and rocket-propelled grenades, and are now training with Russian forces in basic infantry tactics, artillery use, and trench warfare. Historical context: Russia and North Korea's evolving alliance. While North Korea has historically maintained a distance from international conflicts, the alliance with Russia signals a shift in Kim Jong-un's foreign policy strategy. This decision aligns with North Korea's recent moves to strengthen its ties with Russia, including a June 2024 mutual defense agreement and expanded diplomatic exchanges. By participating in the Ukraine conflict, North Korea not only strengthens its alliance with Russia, but also gains leverage on the international stage. The decision to send troops to Russia is also informed by North Korea's desire to negotiate with Western nations, particularly the United States, from a position of strength. Since 2019, North Korea has continued to develop its nuclear capabilities and now possesses a weapons-grade uranium production facility. Kim's goal is clear: secure recognition as a nuclear power and negotiate sanctions relief. By supporting Russia in the Ukraine war, Kim hopes to gain bargaining power that could prove useful in potential negotiations with the U.S. and other Western powers. Potential implications for the Korean Peninsula and U.S. foreign policy. The involvement of North Korean troops in the Ukraine conflict adds a new layer of complexity to the geopolitical landscape. With President-elect Donald Trump preparing to take office, U.S. policy toward North Korea and the conflict in Ukraine may shift significantly. Trump's administration has signaled a willingness to end the Ukraine war quickly, potentially at the expense of Ukrainian territorial sovereignty. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance has suggested a plan that would allow Russia to retain control over its current holdings in Ukraine, a marked departure from the outgoing Biden administration's policy of strong support for Ukraine. The relationship between Trump and Kim Jong-un also brings an element of unpredictability to the situation. During his first term, Trump engaged in an unconventional bromance with Kim, culminating in the first-ever meeting between a sitting U.S. president and a North Korean leader. Although this relationship did not yield a comprehensive nuclear disarmament deal, it opened new avenues for diplomacy that could resurface in Trump's upcoming term. What this alliance means for the future of the war in Ukraine. The presence of North Korean troops could alter the trajectory of the Russia-Ukraine war in several ways. While Russia has previously relied on private militia groups like the Wagner Group, the addition of North Korean soldiers presents a new dynamic. Unlike private militias, these troops are part of a foreign state military, representing a direct intervention by a non-European nation in the conflict. This shift could affect both battlefield dynamics and the political calculations of Western nations supporting Ukraine. For Putin, the North Korean troops provide essential manpower, especially as Russia struggles to meet recruitment targets amid rising casualties. With North Korea's involvement, Russia may be able to sustain its offensive operations without redirecting additional troops from other strategic areas. At the same time, North Korea's participation in the war introduces risks. The involvement of foreign troops may provoke international condemnation and lead to additional sanctions or military responses from NATO and other allies. Furthermore, North Korean forces, while numerous, have limited combat experience outside their borders, which could impact their effectiveness in a modern, technologically advanced battlefield. Looking ahead, key questions and potential scenarios. The course of the Ukraine war may hinge on several key factors. Effectiveness of North Korean troops. Will North Korean soldiers have the training and resilience to impact the conflict meaningfully? Given that North Korean forces have limited experience in international combat, their effectiveness remains to be seen. If Trump pursues a policy of compromise with Russia, allowing it to retain Ukrainian territories, it could have significant implications for Ukraine's sovereignty and future relations with the West. By aligning with Russia, North Korea aims to gain leverage over the U.S. and other powers. However, this alliance may come at a cost, drawing North Korea deeper into a conflict with unforeseen consequences. The Russia-North Korea partnership may encourage other nations to forge unconventional alliances, potentially shifting global military dynamics. If North Korea's involvement emboldens other authoritarian regimes, it could redefine alliances in Asia and beyond. The coming months will undoubtedly bring new developments, but one thing is clear. The involvement of North Korean troops has introduced a new and unpredictable element to the Ukraine war, reshaping its trajectory and implications for global security.